No, man, but you got to keep going. What am I going to do, quit? That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it? You make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
Hey gardeners, hope you're all having a great week out in your gardens. I thought I'd show you all my eggplants that I've got in the garden growing. I talk about them a lot because they're the one thing I grow that I don't actually eat. I got friends that like eggplants. I love growing these plants. As you can tell, they are just beautiful. They're gorgeous plants. Why wouldn't you want them in your garden even if you didn't eat them? And there's plenty of fruits already starting to form on these plants here. So there's gonna be plenty to share. All right, everybody, let's get growing. All right, all right. It is Saturday, everybody. It is Saturday, so that means it's time for the Let's Get Growing show here. Thank you, all my garden enthusiasts and passionate plant people, for joining us here on the Urban Gardener channel and right here on YouTube. Awesome to have all of you here today. We've got a really great show for you today. Today we're featuring an interview I did just a little while back ago. We tried to play this, actually had some technical difficulties a few weeks back, but here we are again. We're going to give it another shot, but we've got our interview with Joe Lamp'l. He is the host of the PBS award-winning series Growing a Greener World. Joe sat down with me, he got on the line with me, and we had a great discussion about all sorts of things in gardening and his, just his kind of garden story, how he got into doing this just amazing show on PBS. And he's been someone I've been watching for years, and it's just been so great to been able to have talked to him and share that here with you here today. So everybody stay tuned for that interview coming up later on in the hour. But here in just a few minutes, we're also going to get to meet in our Are You Following Me segment, Rebecca from Happy Heart Gardens. I've been following Rebecca on Instagram for a while, and I just really love her content on her Instagram and everything she shares out of her garden. So it's gonna be great to talk to her about her garden story too as well, coming up here in a few minutes. So definitely stay tuned for that. And if you are here with us right now, you know the routine. Let's do it. Let's hit that thumbs up, click the like button, and also subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. We got some really great shows here for you on the Let's Get Growing show, but we also got some great videos and all of that showing you our gardens here on our channel. So definitely subscribe, hit the bell notification so you can be notified of our upcoming videos and live streams. Plus share with your friends. Definitely get the word out there. Help us get some people in here and come and join in with the conversation with all of these just wonderful people we get to meet up with here each and every week on the Let's Get Growing show. And also, we also love to give a big, huge shout out right at the top of the show to all of you who are watching our replay, because we are a live stream show. It's great to have the conversation here live, but one of the great things about YouTube is that after this show is over, it now becomes basically a video, and you all get to watch it anytime you like, or catch up if you missed parts of it, or you had to step away for a little while. You can come back and watch the replay. But one of the things I always ask, if you are watching the replay, again, same thing, hit the like button, all of that sort of stuff, but definitely get into the comment section below, leave some comments, let us know you are here, let us know what you've got growing on, let us know what you think of the show, let us know if you got any suggestions for any guests that you'd like to see here on the show too. So I'd love to hear all about anything you'd like to talk about, or just come by and say hi, but definitely leave a comment down below. Awesome. So thank you all so much. And if you are here with us live right now, though, and you do have a question or comment, definitely get into our chat, join in with everybody there. Will be a great conversation during the show. And you can also jump in and leave a comment about anything we're talking about, or ask a question of me or our guests as well too. So definitely questions for the guests and all of that. And then we might just featured on the show. Some questions we might not be able to get to, but we'll try to get to them if we can during our conversation. So definitely jump into the chat with those as well too. So great to have you all here with me this week. I hope you all are having a really great week. Lots and lots going on for us here on the Let's Get Growing show. So just a little bit kind of an upfront rundown of where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. So let's start with where we've been real quick. Last week, I did want to let you know all about our Sunday edition, which we do as well too, because we are live Saturday and Sundays, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. We do have our Sunday edition. And on the third Sunday of the month, which was last Sunday, it's our Book of the Month Club, and we feature a book each month, and the author comes and joins with us to talk all about the book. And last week we talked with Christy Wilhelmy, author of the book Garden Variety. And I'm telling you, this is such a great book. It's kind of a little step out of the norm for gardening books. I mean, we're usually talking about like something kind of maybe a subject or how-tos, instructional type of books and all of that. Christy wrote just an amazing, really fun fictional tale about some characters in a community garden down in Los Angeles and all these sort of things that go on and all of that. And it's just a really fun book. Again, too, that book is Garden Variety. And go check out that book if you can. It's really awesome. She's working on part 2, and you can hear all about that in our conversation we had last week, as well as our Saturday show. Though our featured guest was Leo Carver. We had such an amazing conversation with Leo. Leo wrote the book Growing Consciousness, and it's one of the things that I love talking about. I think pops up all the time when we're talking to guests here on the show is that kind of connection we get to our gardens. That's almost kind of a spiritual connection, a healing connection. We get this really kind of great connection to nature through our garden spaces and our gardening. And I find that to be something that's just really incredibly fascinating. I think that experience when new gardeners have that, as I've said before, just really seals the deal when it comes to gardening. You get that experience in the garden, and then you're just going to be a gardener for that point on. I don't think I'll ever not garden, basically, just for that reason alone. And then I get all the food, and I get all the community, and I get all the other great things about it. But that real personal spiritual healing that happens in the garden is just an amazing experience. And it was really fun to talk with Leo about that. So definitely go back and check out that show. And then in that show too, we got to meet Paul Chad Hughes of Backyard Garden Pro. He's a really great gardener from Louisiana. We had a great conversation talking about his garden story, and just really, really fun episodes last week on last weekend shows. So definitely go and check those out. And just to kind of give you a rundown of what we're looking at coming up though too, because we are kind of running into summer. This is the first week of summer. How's your first week of summer going, everybody? I mean, it's getting hot for us here already. It's been getting hot already mid-spring. I mean, we've been having the warmest winter, now the warmest spring that I think I've ever experienced in my area here in Southern Oregon. And we just had like a mid-90s day yesterday, looking for another one here today. So I'm sure this room's going to start warming up here real soon. So if you see me sweating during the show, you'll know what's going on. but yeah, that's kind of the thing that's going on. It's the first week of summer. We got all of that sort of stuff going on in our garden spaces, but we also, it's kind of a summertime thing. I've got a couple of I was already kind of planning maybe a show break for basically the 4th of July weekend holiday, that sort of thing. But something else has kind of run up to and butted up with that same time period. So I was hoping and planning that it would, I guess hoping and planning in this situation is really something. But my daughter is about to have my first grandchild. And I'll just say that my daughter's about to have my first grandchild. My first granddaughter is going to be born, and her due date though was right near. Was July 5th. Was right there. The 4th of July holiday. So I was like, how perfect would that be to line all of that up? To be the 4th of July. We'll take our summer break from the show and all of that. Well, the doctor and the baby have different plans, and so the baby will be here, if not any day between now and the 28th, which is next week and next Friday. And so so sometime between now and next Friday, my baby granddaughter will be born, and I'm going to try to, you know what I mean, I don't want to, I'm going to hold back on the show. So we're going to pull back. We've rescheduled some things, and except for I will be here on the Sunday. We will have a conversation with our friends King and Chris as we've planned. But the Saturday show will be basically, if I have some time, I might show up and I might just be here and I might tell you how everything's going and all that sort of stuff, because I like to be here during those days that we don't do a show. But the point ultimately is that I'm just not going to worry about any show planning. I'm not going to do anything like that or anything. So if I do show up, it's going to be just me turning the camera on and us just having a quick little conversation maybe next Saturday. So then the next week we will have a show break as well too. We'll try to figure out something. And again, if so, like I said, if I got some time or I'm around, I might pop on, say hi or something like that too, just to kind of be here during our regular scheduled time. But for the most part, we're just not going to have our regular show with all of our guests and all of that sort of stuff until probably, I think our next show will be July 13th. And then we'll have a whole bunch of new shows, new guests, all sorts of things for you to get you all through your summer gardening season. So that'll be awesome. And it's really great to have you all joining along with me here too. So definitely look for it. I'll definitely put up those little reminder thumbnails and those sort of things that you can find on our YouTube page, and you'll see upcoming shows. And if I'm going to be on or something like that, I'll let you know ahead of time by having one of those posted up. And if you see one of those up next Saturday or Sunday, then come join with me. I'll be here. We'll talk about some things going on, and hopefully maybe a baby announcement next Saturday. So that'll be awesome. And again too, though, lots of things going on in the garden. We are really pushing past some of this cold season, warm season transition. As I said, the summertime's really been marching on us, really early this year. So we've been kind of hurrying and getting some things going. I've been kind of right now in a battle also too, because we grow in these spaces, in the alleyway spaces, as a lot of people know. I've been dealing and battling some slugs right now. I've been trying to get out there. There's so many of them this year. I've been trying to figure out and find their hiding spots and stuff through the daytime, and then get out there in the nighttime and really just get in, look and all of that, because I've got a lot of little small starts and they love to get some of those things, especially cucumbers. You know what? They don't touch some of my squash. Some of them they do, some of them they don't. But cucumbers, they like to go after those and take those out. And I've been kind of battling those, because you get those little starts in, and maybe you get a few slugs and they'll bite on them and they'll kind of do whatever. And then once those root systems really kind of catch on and get in there and start expanding and growing, then that plant will start outgrowing some of that issue that the slugs are causing. But really early on like this, some of the damage, and then on top of that, the heat. So, you got the damage, you got the heat really causing some other issues. So I'm trying to keep them cool in the day, shaded, all that sort of stuff, to try to help them out and everything as well too, to kind of overcome a lot of this early transition stress that they're going into some of these garden spaces and all of that. So the cucumbers I've been battling just a little bit. I've got some backups I'm trying to get going and make sure that we'll at least have some. But I got plenty of different varieties. Just some of them that were growing in a certain space I'm having some real issues with right now too. So I wonder if those are a similar situation with all of you as well too. You all having some issues with your gardens or slugs this year? Slugs seem to be my thing. I'm not looking at many other things right now other than really, just weeds. Weeds are always an issue, but just trying to keep things up and all of that sort of stuff. But slugs this year are kind of my thing. So let's see here. Who do we got joining with us today? Oh, yes, of course. Really great. Love it to see Rick here joining us from rainy Sydney, Australia. At least he's getting some good rain there. I wish I could get some of that here. But Rick, thanks for joining with us. So nice and bright and early for him, as we learned a couple of weeks back when we had Mark from Self-Sufficient Me joining us from Australia. He joined with us live, and we had to push the show ahead an hour. And that still was getting him up at 5 a.m. to be with us the next day, too. So Rick's up always early, nice and early, and joining with us. So it's great to have you. And of course, we got with us the greatest moderator on YouTube, just a great moderator for so many really great YouTube channels out there and live streams. But Jay is so awesome to help us out here on the Let's Get Growing show, joining us from Ontario, Canada. And Jay, throughout the show, will be dropping in some links and information and just kind of helping guide the conversation along and all of that. We are so blessed to have Jay with us. Thank you so much, so much. Charles jumping in there. He says, my area is already having 100-degree weather. Put shade cloth over my tomatoes. Yeah, so if you got some shade cloth, this is something that you really want to try to do. Or if you can, get some things in the way. I don't know if there's any possibility of that. You can kind of create some shade some way throughout certain parts of the day. Usually midday is a really good time to really kind of create some shade on most things. Some early sunlight, some late sunlight, but that midday heavy sunlight is really good to shade off on some plants. And if you can, also, it's a good thing to think about if you are thinking about starting a garden or creating new garden spaces, and that too. That's always something to think about, is where is that possible midday shade going to be, and really make sure that you're just kind of like making sure that those things kind of line up just right. If you have that possibility, a lot of us don't have that, but if you do, that's always a great thing to think about. Let's see here. Let's see. Rick saying that I've heard there's been lots of hot weather out there. Yeah. And another thing about Rick and them joining us in Australia too is that here we are moving into our summertime. Rick's moving into his winter time, so things should be cooling down for him over there as well too. So right on. Really great to see all of you. Big Will Dog, thanks for joining with us here from hot and sunny Indianapolis. Great to have you with us here, Will. Awesome. Let's see. Will says, wiped out my slug issues with Sluggo. Okay. Yeah. I try to, and I'll do some of that stuff. I got to dig through the shed. And that's kind of my goal after the show today, is to see if I do have something I can just get out there and just kind of really, get it where it needs to be too, right there around your plants where they're heading. Kind of stop them off midway and let them feed on something else. So yeah. All right. So everybody, we've got some really great guests here with us for the show today. So I ought to get moving on with that. So we'll be right back here in just a moment and meet our first guest. Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with IV Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. IV Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
This is Sarah from Sarah's Seed Shop, here with this week's trivia question. Which of the following is not considered a nightshade? A, potato, B, sweet potato, C, eggplant, or D, pepper? We'll be back with the answer a little later in the show.
All right. You know which one's not in the nightshade family? Put your answers there in the comments. Awesome, awesome. Let's see here. Also, I wanted to say hi to Dart X joining with us. He said slugs ate all his cucumber starter plants. They had salad. Oh, yes, they do. They love to get in there and do that. Charles mentioned an idea. Put a wide board down, or just some board right on the ground there. You could use other things. They like rocks and things as well too. You can look at as well. But if you put a board down there, they'll crawl under the board. You can check it early in the morning and get rid of some of them as well too. So that's a good idea there from Charles as well, to isolate and get some of those dang critters out of our gardens. Yeah. All right, all right. And Jay was mentioning too, Sluggo is a truly organic compound used to control both slugs and snails. Its active ingredient is iron phosphate, an organic compound that breaks down into fertilizer. Yeah. So I got to go dig and find out if I got some of that stuff too, because I got to get it to work. I am not going to be trying to battle these guys all season. All right. So let's move on here. Today we've got a great guest with us here for our Are You Following Me?
Are you following me? Are you following me, dude?
All right. Today we're following Rebecca from Happy Heart Gardens. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. It's great to have you here on the show. Thanks for joining with us today. So how things been growing on in your garden? Are you dealing with some slugs over there too?
Oh my gosh, yes. All the slugs, yes, always. So I garden primarily in South Alabama, which is very hot and very wet. So
Yes.
we've been dealing with slugs. And then I also garden in northern Pennsylvania, so hence Happy Heart Garden. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. I think you were mentioning to me you got and we were seeing you got two different gardening spaces that you grow from in two different states?
Yes, South Alabama and northern Pennsylvania.
Oh wow, that's right on. So do you just spend different times of the year in these different places?
Well, I've lived in South Alabama, so I'm from northern Pennsylvania. So my main garden is here, but I'll go back in the summertime since it's such a shorter season in Pennsylvania and plant a small garden for my mom. And then I do pumpkins up there because pumpkins in the South are just too tricky.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah, because you got two really great climates. You can grow different things of that sort and manage different types of plants in those different areas. What are some of those, besides pumpkins, what are some of those differences in things that you grow between the different places?
Well, that's pretty much it. And now we're sort of transitioning more to flowers for my mom because it's just her. So she'll just do a few tomatoes, potatoes, onions, that type of thing. Things that I can kind of just like plant and then she can just sort of harvest. And then I'll go back in the fall and harvest the pumpkins.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. That's right on. So all right, so let's dig into your garden story, Rebecca. Where does your garden story begin? Do you got a nice long history growing with family and all of that, or is this something you've come to later on in life?
Sort of both.
Okay.
So I grew up on a dairy farm in northern Pennsylvania and come from a long line of farmers on both sides of my family. So we've always sort of been growing, not necessarily gardens, although I'm sure there were lots of gardens along the way. So I grew up, in a tractor with, planting corn, harvesting corn, that kind of thing, oats, of course, hay for the cows. And then when I got older on my own in my early 20s, that's when I started to really garden, vegetable gardening. My mom growing up and grandma always had lots of flower gardens, but I really got into vegetable gardening in my 20s.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I myself took a little bit longer to get into vegetable gardening. I have always, grown plants, house plants, all that sort of stuff since a very young age. So that was kind of my early plant experience at a young age. But and then I carried that on into adulthood until like my 30s before I really discovered growing my own food, and then my gardening the whole thing just took off from there.
Yeah. Once you harvest like your first vegetable, I feel like you're hooked.
Yes, it was. It was really that first cucumber, as I always tell everybody about, that just really hooked me, got me going, and here I am, years later, hosting a gardening show, all because of a cucumber so many years ago. So how about that, right?
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it.
We all get a little crazy when it comes to gardening, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's okay. It's good.
That's right. It is good. It's good. It's healthy. It's something
Very
I was talking about just a little bit earlier, something I mentioned with our last week's guest and all of that too. That's something I always find really kind of amazing is, not is it healthy, not only do we get food out of it if we're vegetable and food gardeners, there's people who get the same experiences from decorative gardens and landscape gardening and all that sort of stuff as well too, but that kind of connection we get to nature, that kind of spiritual side of things, that healing that we get from just connecting with growing these plants and doing that sort of thing. And I find that there's growing the first one and getting your first experience of being successful with your first plant, and then there's that experience of that kind of healing we get from our garden. I think it's sealed at that point in time, and we're going to be gardeners from that point on, and I don't think any of us will give it up, no matter how much our knees tell us not to.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So many benefits, all around. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So what is it that you enjoy most about gardening in the gardening experience?
I mean, pretty much in everything you said, just really being in nature. I love the fact that there's always something to learn. I mean, no matter how long you've been gardening. I mean, I've been gardening, oh gosh, like 20 years now, close to, and I'm still learning all the time. I mean, like, I feel like you're never done learning. There's something new, to learn, something new to try, something new to experiment with, or new to grow with. And that, I think, is just so great. Like, I love learning. So I love that. And I love the connection, and of course, the food.
Exactly. And that's really one of the biggest things too, that I think I learned from a lot of other more experienced gardeners. And I always say those are the gardeners you can really trust and know you're getting some good information from, is when they've been experienced for 20, 30, 40, some even, 50 plus years of garden experience, but will always tell you that they're still learning new things, and there's still, and there's still more for them to learn, that sort of thing. And that's just really true. And I think it's one of the great things about gardening too, is that there's always a chance to kind of expand your knowledge, even within things you think you know enough about. There's a lot of stuff I've really successfully grown, but I'm always finding new ways and new techniques and new things to try, and always open to that experimentation that the garden allows for.
Oh yeah, and that's, I mean, the great thing about gardening, man. You can keep it as small or as as crazy and large as you want, and just sort of grow a couple of things that or like you said, continue to learn and try new things and keep growing. Really
Exactly.
whatever you want it to be and whatever works in your space.
Yeah. And then again too, those are those things too as well. You got to watch out with a lot of garden information that's out there. Some things that you work and try. There's nothing wrong with experimenting and learning from things that work or don't work. But when you find those things that work for you, you know what I mean? Then those are definitely things that you want to hold on to, and you keep that practice going in your garden spaces. But again, being open and trying things, doing things so that you can be, so that you can give yourself the opportunity to learn those sort of things.
Right. And knowing that you're going to have failures. I think that's really the biggest thing. People, when they try, like maybe they'll try a tomato plant or something and it didn't grow, or the bugs came. I mean, that's totally normal. Like, everybody that grows is going to have some type of failure. I mean, you just keep on going.
Exactly.
Not set you back. You maybe make some tweaks, or sometimes it's just nature itself.
Yep.
You really just, you can't get this.
A lot of factors, there's just a lot of factors out there, weather factors, pest factors, just all sorts of things that can bring about different issues. For me, there's a lot of gardener error.
That's everybody.
Things that I'm trying to overcome and all that, and I still do years and years later trying to figure things out. But I think that's an important piece of advice to any new gardener, and I always try to emphasize that as well too, is that be open to mistakes.
Yeah.
Be
Just
open to that to happening.
Yeah.
Your second garden is always going to be better than your first garden. Your third garden is always going to be better than your second garden. And that's just the way it's going to go. And usually, most of the time, your first garden is something that you're just getting set up. So
Right.
it's bound to have issues. And that's something I always try to tell people is that be prepared for that, because you're usually, if you're raised bed gardening, you're usually bringing in some newer soil, and the soil hasn't had a chance to break down, build the soil microbiology that it really needs to be really, really successful. So, a lot of people will be like, it's my first year gardening and my plants aren't really growing that well. And it's like, well, did you just set up that garden bed this year?
Right.
And it's like, yeah. And then, yeah, okay, well, then just be prepared. Next year is going to be even better than that.
Oh, absolutely. And your garden's going to make its own little ecosystem, its own little
Mhm.
sort of, thing. The bugs will come, but the good bugs will come too. Like it'll all sort of work itself out. I mean, sometimes you
Yeah.
got to get a little help with some sluggo for sure.
Exactly. I know. I hope I think I do. It's been a little while since I've been to the back part of the shed right now where that stuff is supposed to be. So I hope it's still there. I hope it's ready to go. It's either that or I got to go make a run after this show and get something going with those
I
guys.
hope so
Because
too. Yeah, a lot of people have been struggling with slugs this year. That's a common complaint I'm hearing. So you're not alone.
yeah. And like I said, it's usually in most years at this point in time where I'm doing that transition, and I'm putting some of our, like our cucumbers and our things out there into the garden space that, I don't let my starts get too big. I don't want to let the cucurbits get root bound at all. So they got to get out into that garden space. And so when I get them out in the garden space, it's usually a situation where, like I said, the slugs will come and bite and they'll do some eating on some of those first leaves that are coming out. But once those root systems get going, then they start really growing and start.
Right.
But with that added heat on top of that, and now that extra stress of the heat with an earlier summer showing up on us this year, it's just, it's devastating to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, as the weather keeps changing on us, we're all learning to adapt, and adjust to, different things. Wet springs, early summers, hotter summers. It's really
Yep.
throwing a loop, I think, for all of us, all over the country. Kind of no matter where you're at. I mean, the Northeast is having a crazy heat wave. I think they're like the same temperature as me, 1,200 miles north. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I know. And it was really a big sign for us where the second day of the year was, I think, 72 degrees for us here
Oh, wow.
in Southern Oregon.
Yeah.
And that is like never unheard of. And so I was like, oh no. And it was, it wasn't like that. That was just like a real off day for that. But it wasn't like that for most of the winter, but it was a pretty warm winter.
Right.
And that was just a sign for the very beginning of the year, like, oh, you're in for a hot one this year.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? And we actually have, I think, a little bit of a cooler winter for us. Like I had some more frost because I'm in, what am I now? I'm 9A now. So I shouldn't have like a lot of frost, but I was having to cover a lot, which is crazy.
Yeah. And I'm 8B myself here in Southern Oregon. So, a little bit of differences between those sort of that, but very close to the same type of climate. But yeah, and there were a few frosts. There were a few of those, but what was really surprising was how early the last frost date actually was this year.
Mm-hmm.
Versus what our normal one is, and that we're all aiming for. And
Right.
every time I try to say, okay, well, I'm going to go a little earlier, I always get in trouble when I do that. So I was like, I'm going to try to start them earlier, baby them along, and then get them out around the time that they should be. And I could have done it a month and a half early probably this year, which is really crazy to think about.
That is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. My tomato plants could have like a month and a half head start of growing, and I didn't take it up because if it wasn't that way.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, frost covers are great and they're nice to have, but it's also, it's a lot of work and it's not always feasible to base, depending on how your garden space is set up. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And exactly. And how there's for mine being spread around, I have to have separate coverings all over and so much different stuff. So yeah, it becomes a real hassle if I have to do that. And, but maybe, I don't know. We'll see next year. We'll see next year. I'm not sure. And like you said, everything changes so much from year to year. So it's really hard to tell what we're going to be able to do and how we're going to be able to continue strategies that we learn from year to year. We just got to kind of roll with the punches these days when it comes to gardening.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important too to, like you mentioned, like knowing your frost dates, and not getting so caught up in like zones. I feel like beginning gardeners
Yep.
get caught up in like, what zone am I and what is your
Yep.
zone, and really just
Yep.
your own microclimate in your own yard is going to be so different than maybe even your neighbors, because
Yeah.
you're going to have different, like, you can have heat coming from your building, like who knows, there's all sort of little things. So really just focusing on your own little area and talking to gardeners in your area too helps a lot.
Big time. That's one big piece of advice. Local extensions.
Yes.
Local extensions, if you can talk to people there, they're always happy to give you information. And one of the things you can ask about too is trending. It hasn't been trending kind of warmer the last couple of years or cooler, as we're approaching last frost date, first frost dates, these sort of things, which, like you said, are more important piece of information versus zones.
Right.
Zones really only, are talking about what we're dealing with our perennials. And I like to encourage people to grow perennial food things. So when you're doing that, definitely pay attention to your zones. Definitely keep an eye about that sort of stuff in that case. But for the most part, all of our annuals and everything really rely on our last frost date and when that is. And local extensions can help us with some of those trending things as well too. Because they'll know, they're keeping that information. They're not, they know.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what are some of your favorite things to grow in your garden?
Well, I had mentioned, Pennsylvania pumpkins. So that's, I just love that. But down here in Alabama, a lot of root crops. I really like to do potatoes in grow bags, carrots, onions, lettuce. Of course, that's more of a winter crop for me. I could probably do it now, but it would require a lot of work. So we just have that in the winter time.
Yep.
And it's nice to have that freshness too in the winter. And I do a lot of flowers too. I'm a huge flower person, perennials, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Annuals, and all the things. I started growing peanuts when I was down here.
Oh yeah.
I never thought about growing. People don't think about growing peanuts, but I'm like,
they're so fun.
Yeah, I'm in one of the.
They're a fun plant.
They are a super fun plant. I'm doing a whole little like peanut grow along. I'm trying to show people how they grow and encourage more people to grow them because they are so. They're just such a fun plant. Just the way they grow. And if you had kids, I think it would be so fun for kids.
Every time I'm trying to think about like a really fun or amazing type of plant, like if you're talking to kids or anything like that, it's always peanuts that I fall on because it's one thing, the peanut, everybody knows the peanut, but how it grows, how the plant grows is so interesting, how it grows out and then it drops its seed or plants its own seed is basically what it does.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing. Like a lot of plants will, they'll bear seed and then, something will have to do it or whatever, but it literally digs itself into the ground and plants its own seed.
Little spikes or pegs, they call them. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just, they're so amazing. I got to grow some more of those. It's been a few years since I have, but I grew them just because I wanted to try them out because I'd heard so much about how odd it was. And so I had to see it for myself. So I grew them a couple of years, but I got to put some more in my spaces again.
Oh,
maybe this next year I'll do it again.
Yeah. And you're not, let's be honest, you're probably not going to grow enough to like make your own peanut butter just because, you need a lot. You're probably going to get, I think the average is like maybe 30 to 40 peanuts on a plant. Roughly. And you need some space. I would just give the tip if you're going to grow them, give them like a good foot or more around the base because that's how they form from that point. So they really need the space to grow out and to get your best crop.
Yeah, I learned that the first year I grew them and had to figure that out for the second year too because I had a lot of plants trying to get around and doing each other and. It wasn't working out, but spacing them out's the best way to go, and just a really fun plant to grow like that. What are some of your least favorite things to grow?
I'm probably going to get a lot of disagreement with this, but tomatoes.
Okay, there you go. So this happens,
More so just because I love tomatoes. Don't get me wrong, but it's just.
You said you're in a warm, wet area though, too.
I'm in a warm, humid area, so tomatoes are just really a struggle. We have. really bad fungal bacterial issues, really constant pest pressure. So I do grow tomatoes, but they are not my favorite thing to grow. I've really been the last couple of years trying lots of different varieties and really trying to dial in on which one is going to be, the most disease resistant. Also, I like to do more of like a dwarf, kind of like early tomato, just to try to get them out and, get some. And I'm actually having really good success this year with some dwarf varieties.
Which varieties are you trying?
So I'm doing Marglobe, Neptune, Inca, which is a paste tomato. And then I always grow Sungolds, which are cherry tomato viney. And they just, Sungolds are the best. They will like grow anywhere. They're the first ones to show up. They last the longest. They're happy everywhere.
Right on. Yeah, I finally have some sun golds myself out in the garden this year because I always hear about them from everybody, so I have to do it. But I got to try some of those other dwarf varieties. I might have to get some seeds from you. I've got a micro variety I'm growing that I got seed from Baker Creek called Orange Hat.
Yes,
And those are really cool. And I've got these like little, I think they're about like 2.5 gallon buckets, and I grow like 3 of them in each bucket, and they kind of grow together as a nice little bush, and they're just really great. I love those for small spaces where you can definitely...
so those are micro dwarfs, so they're only going to get like maybe like a and these ones are kind of dwarf / determinate, the ones I'm growing, so they're still probably like
2 feet, 3 feet.
So I've got nice manageable size.
I've got a nice variety called Prax Cherry, which is just a really delicious variety. That's kind of a dwarf like that as well too. But such good ones.
Tomatoes are great. They're just, they can be a little tricky in the South. And I feel like they're the divas of the vegetable world. So I always tell people like, I feel bad when somebody's like a brand new gardener and they're like, oh, I'm going to grow tomatoes. That's great, but I'm afraid they're going to not have success and then be, crushed. I'm like, why don't you try potatoes?
Right, exactly.
Peppers seem to just kind of grow pretty much happily most of the time.
There's just something about tomatoes. I mean, the seeds love to start, the plants love to grow. You get these beautiful starts, you get all these plants, and tomato season looks like it's going great, and then it's time for fruiting, and all this sort of stuff starts to happen. And things start to go crazy, and you're like, what's going on? Why is this plant not doing this? From blossom end rot to cracking to, dropping of, heat and plant drop or a flower drop. Just so many different little things. And if you are in areas, like you said, you might deal with blight and other issues as well. Things I don't have to deal with as much, but tomatoes can be for sure. They're some of people's big favorites, but I do like to hear that sometimes from people who do have to kind of, agree with that sort of sense of what tomatoes are and the work that they kind of require. I mean, a lot of attention, like you said, divas. So they need some attention.
And I agree with you. Like they start out great. I mean, if you're starting your own seeds, they start beautifully. You will have beautiful plants. I mean, I have gorgeous plants every year. And I'm like, this is going to be like the tomato year. I'm going to have like Instagram worthy tomatoes.
Even resilience too at a young age, tomatoes are. So I've messed some up. I got mine out. I got them out to harden them off and ended up forgetting about them. It was a cloudy day, turned into a really sunny day, and next thing you know, I got some fried leaves, and these things are just looking bad. And I'm like, oh no. But 2-3 days later, they're producing new leaves, bounce back just fine. So they're back. They bounce back. The resilient young tomato plants just kind of get our hopes up. Is what it is. They really do. I love growing them still, but at the same time, I completely agree with you with all the troubles and issues, and I don't know. Some people might disagree with me too, because I'm the same way. I love dogs. I love being around dogs. My neighbors and everybody have dogs. I love them. But for me, too needy.
Well, and it's a lot of work. I mean,
a lot of work. Exactly. Dogs are a lot of work. Tomatoes are a lot of work.
Sometimes it's work. Sometimes you question yourself. Why did I start all these?
Exactly.
And it's also kind of with you with eggplants. We're not like huge eggplant people, but they grow so well. So I'm growing, I think, like 10 plants. So
you got a lot of different varieties.
Two varieties. A small one. I did a lot of container type plants this
Yeah.
year. It's because I garden mostly in raised beds and in grow bags. So I wanted to just do
Nice.
like all these fun container varieties. So I
Yeah.
have a small one. I forget what the name of it's now. Little Prince, I think. And then I'm doing just a long, like a long standard variety. Nothing too crazy.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. With the couple that we got there. And that's another thing too, is eggplants, for being kind of a large fruiting plant, do so well in a container, even as small as 5 gallons. I wouldn't go any smaller than 5 gallons.
No, I wouldn't.
But our 5 gallon containers are what those ones I showed at the beginning of the show are. And they'll grow big, beautiful, nice fruits and everything as well too. So that's just one of those things. It's always the thing when you're in kind of like, tomatoes. You growing larger. Again, another problem with tomatoes needing more, right? 5 gallons for like a good slicing type of tomatoes just isn't enough to grow that size of fruit.
Right.
So
I like
yeah,
like a determinate or like a dwarf maybe.
right, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, so and like you said, they got some that are bred in that sort of way, but for most varieties, most of those, go-to varieties of those big ones probably aren't going to do as well in something as small as a 5 gallon. But it just amazes me how well eggplants do in a 5 gallon bucket. So they're great for small spaces.
Yeah, I love that. I love the versatility of growing in buckets.
Exactly. Right on. So here's a question for you, Rebecca. And one of the things is I love following people, and I'm following all sorts of garden people. All my social media is garden people. And that's what a lot of people here on this show get to see, are people that I'm following. So the question is, are you following me? But usually if you're on the show, I am, at least. And I've been following you for a little bit, and I've been enjoying everything you've been doing and putting out on your Instagram page, which we have a link to down below in the description for everybody who's watching. Definitely go and give Rebecca a follow over at Happy Heart Gardens. Go and leave her some comments. This is what we tell everybody around here, is leave some comments and let her know that you found her here at the Let's Get Growing show. But Rebecca, what was it that got you to say, hey, let me share my garden experience? Let's put together this fun little garden, Happy Heart Gardens Instagram page, and start doing some things and really kind of expanding and really showing. I mean, you've got some really good content. I really believe.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. So I have been down here 10 years. So gardening here about 10 years, and I, was just posting stuff, and a friend of mine was like, you should really get on YouTube. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that just seems like a lot of work. Like a lot of
It is
technical things that I'm just not sure that I want to, deal with. And then, so I was already on Instagram privately, with gardening and stuff, not posting a ton of my gardening stuff, but a little bit. And then unfortunately my dad got sick and passed away. And that's when I was like, I'm gonna just try this. It was like a really good distraction at the time, I guess. It really, we talk about the gardening being so healing, which it is. I mean, that really helped me. And this sort of did too, just have something else to think about. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to just share and see, if I can inspire somebody else. I mean, that's really my whole thing. Like, the garden makes my little heart so happy. I just hope that somebody watches something that I'm doing and that makes them happy or inspires them to grow something too. So
exactly.
That's sort of what got me started. And now it's just snowballed. I think it's been 3 years, I think about 3 or 4. So.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's been a little while. I know I've been following you for a little while there. I've actually been more active. I've had the Instagram myself probably for, 7-8 years probably, but it's probably the last 3 or 4. I've actually just been more active myself and paying attention to Instagram as well too. So that's probably, as I was getting on there and getting going, is probably where I found you at. But it's been great to kind of follow along.
Oh, well, thank you. And I had an epic carrot, so that kind of sort of blew me up a little bit, I guess you could say. Not that I have a ton of followers now, but I went from a few to a lot when I did the epic carrot. So.
Right, huh? That's great. That's good. That was kind of a fun experience though too, is to kind of turn around and be like, oh wow, look at that.
Right.
There's all these people following me now.
Oh yeah, that's exciting too. Yeah, it's been a really great experience, honestly. It's just been fantastic. I mean, I'm very genuine. What you see is what you get. I mean, I'm just out in the garden with just, whatever, trying to just, show the real gardening side. But I've met some wonderful people. I've learned more, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, and that's something that I was just on a podcast, YouTube podcast this last Thursday. Texas Garden Guy does the Garden Party podcast there too, and that was something that we really talked a lot about. Was I guess I kind of led the talk about it in a sense, though, was kind of this idea and belief that I have. It's up there at the top of the screen. We're building community through gardening, and the gardening community was such a blessing to me. I want to tie what you just said into what you said before as well too. It's been such a blessing to me to find gardening for one, because as you mentioned, losing your father and turning to that as a sort of way. During the time I was really discovering growing my own food and all of that, my daughter and I lost her mother. And that was a huge, huge loss. But I'd already kind of found gardening in that, so I just kind of turned myself into that. And it was through that I found myself healing and becoming, better through the garden space and all of the different projects and things that I got to do. And on top of that, during that experience and during that process of that, as well as being out there in the gardening and doing that, to learn gardening, turned to people on social media, YouTube channels, and different people who are sharing their experiences in their gardens and connecting with a gardening community. That also helped me get through those times as well too. So, I truly believe, the gardening community is just one of the most amazing groups, if you will, or communities, I guess, right, that there is out there. And it's great to talk to new people and to have people on the show, and to be able to kind of introduce people if you can, or have that sort of experience where we all get to kind of share together and collaborate together, and to do things as we can do today through these sort of things that us everyday regular people can do. Doing live streams or sharing reels, or being a part of when to come and join conversations and that sort of stuff, and for us to really help and inspire other people, I think is the ultimate goal of all of us who share. And It's great that we get to share together too through the types of spaces we have available to us today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just feel completely blessed that even one person follows me. Like, you just have no idea. Like, it's just amazing to me that people choose to just watch what I'm doing and tune in.
Yep.
I just love the community, and I am always happy to answer questions. I mean, people ask me questions all the time, or tag me in giveaways. I'm just here for all the things, and to be supportive. And just so thankful, like I said, for anybody that tunes in or watches the video or follows me or anything like that. Because I get just as much, from them as I'm hoping that I'm giving to them too. So.
Yeah, exactly. And you are. I'm going to tell you that I know you are. You're doing great things. You're doing awesome things. And again, too, it's one of the things we love to do here at the Let's Get Growing show is, have folks on our show that we can introduce to other people and help kind of promote people out there doing this sort of stuff in the gardening spaces, because it takes all of you wonderful people out there creating content to inspire all of us gardeners out there to do and grow, and create such a great community for all of us to take part in. And being part of it is just such a great thing. And it's great to have you a part of the gardening community too, Rebecca. And thanks for joining with us today on the Let's Get Growing show. It's been really awesome to have you here today. Real quick, you want to let everybody know one more last plug, let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Happy Heart Gardens. So the gardens is plural. I do have a YouTube, but I only have some yoga videos there because I just haven't quite ventured into that. So I'm also a yoga teacher. So I do a little bit of yoga in the garden. So maybe maybe the YouTube will grow, but right now it's pretty much just Instagram. So that's plenty with the garden and everything else. That keeps me busy.
Excellent. Yeah, that's awesome. I might have to do that. I've been thinking about yoga for quite a while, actually, and I really just need to break down and get to doing some and give it a shot, because it would be so fun to do some yoga in the garden spaces. I've really kind of imagined this, but yet getting down to actually doing it, I need to. So I think I'm gonna have to go check that out and see what I can maybe inspire me to start getting down and doing some yoga in my garden spaces.
Perfect. I love it. That would be fantastic.
Awesome, Rebecca. Thanks again so much for joining with us here today, and
Oh,
everybody
thank you
else.
so much for having me. Thank you. And
You
thanks for
got
everybody
it.
that tuned in. I appreciate it.
You got it. Yes, absolutely. Everybody, get down in the description below if you need a link there to Happy Heart Gardens. If not, go to Instagram and just check out at Happy Heart Gardens. You'll find Rebecca there and follow along with all of her great content. And like I said, go leave some comments and let her know that you saw her show. And Rebecca, we're definitely going to have you back again and have some and join in some more great fun gardening conversations here on Let's Get Growing. And awesome. Thanks again for being here with us today.
Have a great day. See ya.
Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits.
The answer to this week's trivia question is B. Sweet potatoes are commonly mistaken for nightshades, but they actually belong to a very different scientific family. Nightshades are plants belonging to the Solanaceae family. They're known for producing alkaloids that repel pests and are considered harmful for humans in large amounts. Meanwhile, sweet potatoes belong to the Convolvulaceae family, also known more commonly as morning glories. Thanks for watching. Head over to Sarah's Seed Shop where you can find garden seeds at unbeatable prices. Enjoy the rest of the show and have a great day.
All right. Excellent. How awesome was that conversation with Rebecca from Happy Heart Gardens? Really great to have her on the show with us here. Let's see here. Someone was saying here, oh, Blue Wolf jumped in there saying that maybe yoga has a slug pose that you could do in the garden that I might appease the slug. Yeah, for sure. Right. And then Bowtie Life was like, great idea, Rebecca. I'm sure I could benefit from yoga. I know. I'm telling you. I've been thinking about yoga for quite a while, and it's always been in this kind of like vision of myself kind of in the center of my garden doing these fun garden poses and stuff. And even, even kind of what we were talking about last week on the show with Leo Carver too, is that same sort of vision. I also kind of have those, meditation visions where you're meditating and doing all that sort of stuff in this beautiful garden space and all of that. But yeah, definitely got to do that. All right. Oh yeah, everybody, let's listen to Martin here. Martin's got a great idea. How about if you haven't yet already, hit that like button. Martin, thank you. Thanks for joining with us today. Awesome to have you here. Great to have everybody else here with us today. Hope everything's going great for you and everybody in the garden. Let's see. Oh, one thing I was going to say here too. I saw Bote was mentioning. I learned this past week my turtles eat slugs and snails. I have biggins too. And I'd heard about this, and I thought about this too. Is like, how cool would it be to like maybe get a tortoise or some turtles or something like that to get out there and do some eating on some slugs and all of that. But my biggest problem is I live on an alleyway. Most of my problems are on all these alleyway things, and I don't think that an alleyway is very conducive to the good life of a tortoise or or a turtle. So probably not the best idea for me, but maybe some people have some cool isolated backyards and some things like that. They're dealing with those issues that a turtle or a tortoise might be perfect for as well too. So let's see. Jay says that Rebecca reminded me, I used to do yoga in the garden. Used to. Oh, I'm going to get back. I'm going to get out there and get going. I got to try that for sure. All right. Oh, and there she is in the chat with us. All right, Rebecca's in the chat. Thank you so much for having me. Can't wait to hear about your garden yoga. Yeah. Well, great last minute inspiration there in the conversation, Rebecca. That's awesome. Excellent. So, all right, everybody. Today we got a great interview for you as well too. I just want to let everybody know ahead of time, this is a pre-recorded interview. I had to catch Joe in his own time and get an interview with him for our show. So I'll be in the comment section with everybody. We'll continue the chat. You can still leave some comments and all of that we might feature right here on the show as well too. Just not be able to ask Joe any direct questions or anything, but if you got a question for me or anything like that, definitely jump into the chat as well too and continue the conversation there as we check out our conversation today with Joe Lamp'l. I mean, literally, this is such a great get for our show. I was really excited when we booked him to get this interview, and then was really excited to be able to sit down and have a conversation with him and talk all about his show. I mean, he's got one of these great. I mean, it's a really great show. If you haven't had the chance to check out Growing a Greener World or Joe Lamp'l's PBS show, they do upload all the episodes to YouTube, and I did put a link to that down below in the description as well too, so that you can go and check out Joe's show. His award-winning PBS show, Growing a Greener World. So all right, everybody, let's check out that interview with Joe Lamp'l.
You never know when you might learn something, and that's what this is about for me. These are people that I admire. Please welcome my next guest.
So, all right, everybody, let's welcome to the show the host of the award-winning public television series, Growing a Greener World, and many, many other things, which we'll get to here in just a little bit. Joe Lamp'l. Thank you, Joe, so much for joining with us here on our show today.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And thanks for your patience in working out a schedule that worked for me to be able to do this.
Yes, absolutely. No problem. Like I want to say, we're just right off the bat, though, as far as a person, who creates and makes gardening content and shows and videos and things on YouTube and everything, you're a huge inspiration to me. And I know many, many other gardening creators out there. So again, thank you so much for spending your time today with us, talk about your garden story and all of the things that you've got growing on.
Thank you. It's really my pleasure for being here. Thanks.
Awesome. So, right away, one of the things I love to do when we getting to talk to somebody on our show is to really dig into their garden story, get right down to it and start right from the beginning. So where does Joe's gardening story start for him?
It happens in Miami, Florida, where I grew up for the first 21 years of my life, following my dad around the yard. He is what I call the weekend warrior. He was not a gardener, but he was the guy that worked hard during the week and came home on the weekends and mowed the grass and edged the driveway and clipped the bushes and, fixed the sprinkler system and whatever else needed to be done. Yeah. And that was his routine on Saturdays. And being the youngest of four boys, and my next oldest brother was 5 years older than me, we typically weren't hanging out when I was 8 and he was 13. So right. I was fine with that because I got to follow Dad around every Saturday. And I love that, just being outside with him and being his little helper. But I remember one day in particular, towards the end of the day for him, he'd finished his chores and he went on inside to cool off. And I still had a lot of energy in me. So I was running around and I'd happened to go by one of the plants he had just got through trimming, and it broke the branch from it. And I thought, oh, no, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get caught for this. Not that he would have cared whatsoever. He's a very kind man. But not knowing what to do, I took that broken branch and I shoved it into the ground right at the base of the plant. and then just covered it up with soil.
Right.
Didn't know if that would be a thing or not, but it seemed good at the time.
Right.
So I went about my business and really forgot about it for weeks. But then there was a time where I came back by that same plant, and it jogged my memory that, there was that plant I broke the branch off of. And I looked for that branch, because I expected it to be dead. I didn't really have any thought that it was going to root itself and sprout new leaves, but it did.
Yeah.
And that to me was like, holy cow, what has happened here? That branch was broken off that plant, and now it's resisting because I'm tugging on it a little bit and it's not giving way. And then there was new growth coming out the top, and I thought, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And not knowing why that happened or how it happened, I needed to learn more. So I was an inquisitive little 8-year-old kid that literally was my defining moment for my discovery of my love of gardening and my need to know more. And from that point forward, I was propagating. I didn't know that was the term back then, but I was making more plants, and now I was cutting them. I wasn't breaking them, but I was cutting them and sticking them in pots and starting seeds. And I mean, in that first year, I bought rose bushes because there was a nursery 2 blocks up the road, and I thought they were pretty and they smelled good. So I planted a rose garden and a vegetable garden and fruit trees, because Miami is a great place to grow a lot of things, and it's very forgiving there. So that was it. That was the start of it. That long story there, but you asked, and
it's great. I love it. I love it. Similar for me, more. I started off. My mother is a huge house plants. Like all of this. This was basically my mother's living room when I was growing up, and in fact, just right above me here is a spider plant. And that was kind of how it got started for me, and this, her showing me how to take one of the little spiderlets off of it and propagate it. And it was so fascinating to watch this thing grow roots. Like we had it like in just a little jar of water, and it grew the roots out. And then from there I got, she showed me how to plant it in a pot, and the thing sat next to my bed for the next couple of years. In fact, grew even bigger than the one I've got up above me there. But it's just, I love that when we've got those kind of connections to growing from a young age like that, and we're able to find that sort of stuff. For me, like later on, it took, I grew up a bit around it, but I didn't really get that connection to gardening and growing, especially growing vegetables and food, until I got much older into my adulthood. But for you, it just seemed to really take off right from the get-go when you were young, huh?
It did. It all seemed to happen at once. And, I was going to say it's kind of a big blur, but it wasn't, because I really remember vividly so many of the things that I planted and taking care of them. It's almost surreal that I think back to many, many years ago and I can just see myself in those scenarios, doing those things and planting the spider plants and propagating staghorn ferns and everything I just mentioned to you. It's very vivid in my mind.
Yeah. That's really awesome. I really love those stories. But then again, like I said, this is something that you just, you kept carrying along with you, even through being a teenager and going into your adulthood. Yeah. In fact, didn't you study horticulture in college as well?
I did, in business. My mother, just a side note, which I attribute a lot of what I've been able to do up to this point to her suggestion. She was a high school teacher, very smart woman. And she said, look, I know you love plants. I know you love horticulture, and I know you want to study that in school, but how about you also consider getting a business degree? Because I think you'll have a lot more options coming out of school, and it might even turn out to be a better thing. And was she ever right? And for once, I actually listened to her. I honestly listened to her a lot, but you know how teenage boys are. They like, but I did. And that was probably the smartest thing I did, was listen to her with that very smart advice, because coming out of school, there weren't a lot of companies looking for horticulture grads. And even if they were, the pay wasn't that great. But the business recruiters had more attractive offers. And so, I took the bait, and I'm glad I did, because I learned a lot for the few years I was in it. But I knew that at some point I'd get off that train and hop on the one that was taking me into the world of horticulture. So
what was that sort of stuff you were doing first off out of college with the?
I I did accounting, which was,
Okay.
I had a finance and accounting degree too, and it's like, why did I do that? I love that. But, I did it, and it was okay, but I didn't like it. And then I got into mortgage banking. This is all in a very short period of time. I got into mortgage banking, which was probably the most lucrative thing I ever did as a loan officer. And it just got to be very easy, and the money was very good. But I had a false sense of that, I was luckier than I was good, I guess. But anyway, I kind of got bored with it. And I wanted to try something new. And then about 5 years later, I left that. Maybe I was going to say the dumbest thing I ever did, but it's not. Just I left it and then did a financial planning for a little while. But that's when I got to get off that train, and I got picked to host a new series on DIY Network, and it was about teaching people how to grow food. And they were looking for a host. They had the idea for the series. They got the funding from the Scripps Howard HGTV network to do this show, and everything was in place, but they hadn't found the host yet. But they knew who they were looking for. They just didn't know who that person was. And over the course of many weeks, they did a national search and put out the word to all the people in the media that were related or connected to gardening. And somebody got that email that I had recently met virtually. I'd never met this person in person, but they got the email and sent it to me, say, Joe, here's this DIY network getting ready to start this series, and they're looking for a host for this show. And who they're describing is you to a T. They just don't know it yet. You need to reach out to them, introduce yourself, and try to get a meeting with them so they can learn about you, because they're going to want to pick you as their host. And so the benefit of being in the business world with sales was I knew how to call up strangers for appointments, because that's what I did for a living. And I got the producer to have lunch with me, and it was the most awkward lunch I think I've ever had in my life, because he was very stone-faced. He held his cards close to his chest. And I could not read this guy. And I'm good at reading people. It's one of the things I do best. Couldn't read this guy at all. And so at the end of the lunch, he'd ask me questions and stuff, and I thought I was giving him good answers. But at the end of the lunch, he goes, all right, well, thanks a lot. I'm gonna share this information with our executive producer, and if we're interested, we'll get back in touch with you and probably ask you to do a screen test. But I don't know if that's going to happen yet, but I'll let you know if it does. And that was it. I'm like, wow, that was kind of weird. No feedback, really. Just maybe we might be back in touch at some day.
Right.
Later, I get a call, and he says, hey, I talked to my executive producer, and we're very interested in you for a screen test. So can you meet us out at this location in a few days, and we'll have everything set up for you. We'll send you a script, and you'll go through the role as if you're the host, so we can just kind of see how you do on camera, and we'll see where it goes.
Oh, nice.
So you want me to keep going with the story? It's almost
yes. I'm interested here. I love it.
So I show up. So the night before my screen test, they sent me the script, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, well, I guess I need to memorize this so that when I get out there on camera, I can pretend I'm the host. But I felt I'd never been on TV before, and I felt really silly practicing my script in front of the mirror. And I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to memorize the script. The more, when I'm out there, I'll get there a little bit early. I'll have it fresh in my mind, and then I'll just go out there and do it. Yeah. I watched all the gardening shows. I know how they do it. I mean, and I know horticulture, so I felt like I could do it. It's just a 45-second script.
Right.
So I figure I can get that down, and I did. So anyway, they all set up, and they have me get into my position. They say, okay, go. So I do my role, and I finish it. I did I did it. I didn't really trip over anything. And he says, okay, do it again. I said, okay. So I did it again. He says, okay, do it again. I said, okay. And there's no feedback along there's no feedback. He said, do it again. Oh. And I probably did it about 8 times, maybe 10. I don't know. It was just a lot. And it was just over and over and over. I guess they wanted to see if I could just repeat it, or if I varied in what
it's a true test, right?
It really was a serious test. So then they throw me a curveball. So we finished that part. He says, okay, let's go over here, and we're going to reset the cameras. And what I want you to do now, and this is off script because they didn't tell me this was coming, but I want you to pretend you're taking a soil test, and you're teaching me as the viewer how to do it and why to do it. And I'm like, okay, so this is all,
Now you
no
just got to
warning
come
of
up
this
with this,
coming.
right? Yeah.
No warning of this. And I'm like, okay. So I do it. And once again, he has me do it maybe 3 or 4 times. And here's the weird part. At the end, so this probably took an hour to do all this. But at the end, he goes, okay, thanks a lot. And I'm like, where's the feedback? I mean, anything? You got anything?
No, nothing.
You did great, or you could have done better, or you're not our guy, or something.
Right.
But he did say, look, okay, we're gonna share this information with the team, and we meet with HGTV next week, and we're gonna show them, and if we have a reason to get back in touch with you, we will. Other than that, it's been nice knowing you. I mean,
Wow.
I didn't have any sense that I was their guy,
Right,
not
right.
anything. But
And not only that, for again, your first like on camera experience,
Totally
your
first camera.
like this sort of
First.
thing. I just I'm thinking as you're telling that though too, that and I've got videos up on my channel, my very first ones I ever filmed, and I look back at those and I go, oh my gosh. So I'm sitting there thinking as you're telling that, like, oh, I just can't imagine myself just being thrown out there and having to like just get right into it and do that. Not having been in front of the camera before.
It felt weird, but at the same time, it didn't feel weird because I was an avid viewer of all of those shows on HGTV. I watched every one because I couldn't get enough gardening TV. So I was very comfortable with the content, and I was personable enough. I felt like I could just do it. So anyway, I didn't feel weird in front of the camera, but they a week after I did all of that, and they had their meeting. I knew they had their meeting because I knew when they were having it up at HGTV. I called them because I just kind of wanted to put it to bed. I was like, I know they didn't pick me, but I just would need to hear that they didn't pick me so I can not think about it.
Exactly.
And he said, well, actually, they like you very much. And he said, what did he say? Oh, he said, here's what he said. He said, they like you very much, but they asked us if we had interviewed any females for this role. And up to that point, they hadn't, because the spec on who they were looking for was a male of a certain age and certain credentials. Right. But they were instructed by HGTV to go do the search over with all females. And this is like another 4 weeks, maybe a 6-week process. It's a big deal to do a national search with a whole new group of people. Yeah. So I thought, okay, well, whatever. And so fast forward 4 or 6 weeks, and I get a call from the producer. He says, hey, got some feedback from HGTV, and they've narrowed it down to 2 people. You are the male that they like, and they've picked a female. And now all we have to do is narrow it down to the male or the female, and whichever one we settle on is going to be the host of this show. So that we're going to know within a week, because we really are behind schedule for getting this show starting in production, because it's already gardening season. We got to get going on it. So we'll be in touch within a week, or in about a week. And to the day, I was at another lunch meeting with somebody else, not related to this show, just what I do. And my pager went off. This is how long ago, back in the day.
Pager even, yeah.
And when I got done with my lunch meeting, I listened to the message, and it was him saying, hey, they picked you as the host of the show. So I'm like, wow. So anyway, a week later, I go from a suit and tie job to on camera for the first episode in jeans and a polo shirt, out in an open field, getting ready to start this garden that became a 3-year series and 52 episodes. But it's funny, to your point.
What a transition.
It was a night and day transition, but it was really surreal to be out there in this new gardening attire, which was my standard attire. But thinking, Mal, I'm doing a television show. But to your point about, watching yourself for your first episode or your first time on TV. That show was filmed a year in advance. So I didn't see anything until a year later when it started rolling out every week for the series. And that we had a watch party for the first show. And so the executive producer and the whole production team all came to my house, and we invited friends and family. And so I'm seeing the show for the first time when everybody else that we knew was seeing it for the first time. And it was kind of horrifying. because I needed a little finesse in my delivery, and at the end of my whatever my line was, or my lines for that on camera segment, it's called an A roll when you're on camera. When I finished that scripted part, because everything was scripted to the second. When I would finish it, I would finish what I was saying, and then I would strike a pose with a smile, and it looked so artificial, and I cringe when I think about that back then. But kind of like saying what I say, and then I'd go, and it's like,
I mean, it's one thing for me, like I'm just doing that. A few hundred people maybe have watched my first videos that I've done and all of that, but I remember that just kind of feeling as I was editing them and putting them together and all of that. And from that, so those very first audiences were just me. It was just me, maybe a couple of other people, in a sense, if they had caught the video when it was first out there. But I remember just that feeling of like, okay, you're putting yourself out there, you're doing this, and that feeling of it. And more so as I look back and I got to see it. I just can't imagine though, in that sense, where you're just going right from, from working a job to now you're hosting this television show, and it's out there in front of the whole nation, just boom.
Weird. Yes. Fortunately, they didn't have to say anything. I really saw myself and saw that I wanted to make some changes. And over the 3 years, I had a chance to improve week by week. And, hopefully it was better by the third year than the first year.
Right. Well, you're doing a darn good job now. I mean, you've gone on from doing that to multiple other things. I mean, you just really exploded into the gardening world at this point in your life, right? And this was now your career. So so what was the move from doing this first show that you did to was Growing a Greener World the next step?
That was the third show. So the first series was only supposed to be 1 year and 26 episodes. But it was going so well. And this is interesting because this was back in 2003, 4, and 5, when vegetable gardening wasn't really that popular. It wasn't the thing like it was when COVID hit and everybody now is growing food in their front yard. So we were ahead of our time for it. But it was a great concept because every episode was teaching people how to grow food from seed to harvest, one crop at a time. So one episode would be how to grow tomatoes. The next episode would be how to grow beans. The next one would be corn, melons, you name it. But it was going so well that during the first year, they said, we would like to extend this series to 3 years and 52 episodes. So all of a sudden I went from 1 year and 26 episodes to 3 years. And it was great. And the only reason that series retired when it was because we ran out of things to teach people how to grow, because we grew everything you could grow. And right as that show ended, I had another contact who was working on a series on PBS, another PBS gardening show, and that host they just ended their relationship with that host, and they were looking to replace that host. So my contact said, hey, here's an opportunity. You want to reach out to that producer and see if you guys maybe you could be their replacement host. And so that's what happened. I reached out. I did become their replacement host for 3 years on that show. But that show, it was great because we would travel the country to public gardens. And as the host, I was working with their head horticulturalist or their head gardener or the director of the botanic garden or whatever it was. And I would interview them, and we would basically do a tour of their garden and the history of it and what they were planting and growing. And so we did that for 3 years. So that was about 100 episodes of traveling to different cities and going to different public gardens. So I got to see a lot of great public gardens over that time and meet some really amazing people. But the thing about that show was that although it was beautiful and it was fun and we saw some cool spaces, in my heart, I was really being stirred because I felt like the message of ecological gardening, that term really wasn't a thing back then, but like environmental stewardship as it connects to gardening really was not being talked about. There were no shows on HGTV doing that. This show that I was hosting wasn't doing that. It was just more of a travel show that had a gardening connection. But I wanted people to be inspired by gardening, but at the same time understand that as they garden, they could do it in a very ecologically minded way that was good for wildlife and everything that would come to the garden to help us, rather than just be heavy on chemicals and, not good practices. So I left that show because I wanted to create a television show. I didn't really know what that show was going to be yet. It didn't have a name, but I took a year off in 2009 and I came up with this concept in my head, and we shot the pilot that year and sent it to PBS, and they loved it and they added it to their library. We got 4 companies as underwriters to fund us. And so we hit the ground running in 2010 and filmed 26 episodes of our first season of Growing a Greener World. And that was my series. That was the one that I created and executive produced and hosted.
Right.
And that's been 12 seasons so far, and we're 200 plus episodes, and it's been a whirlwind, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's just been amazing. It's been a great journey.
Yeah. Again, back to what I was saying at the very opening there, just such an inspiration to those of us who aspire to do similar type of things. You got to do some really great stuff. Growing a Greener World. Just some of the coolest places you've got to visit and to do. How about some of your favorites? What are some of those, some of your favorite shows you've gotten to do over the years?
Well, the first one we did was our pilot, and that became an episode in the first season. But going to Philadelphia to a nursery called Greensgrove Farms, where this woman, Mary Seton Corboy, was the founder of the nursery, and she was just a real influential, wonderful, kind-hearted, generous, tough woman, great leader, inspirational. And she had a vision for bringing fresh produce to a food desert just outside of downtown Philadelphia and in the Kensington area, I believe. But anyway, we went on to have a great relationship over the years, over 10 years. And ultimately she passed away of cancer. She'd been fighting cancer before I ever met her. And during the time that I met her, she was fighting it, and she had, recoveries and then setbacks and recoveries and setbacks. But she became a real hero in my life, as well as many people's lives. But during her lifetime in that role, she did some really great things to create models for regionally sourced ways for people to access food. Just a real leader. So she was one. And the show that we won an Emmy on with a teacher in the Bronx, Stephen Ritz, with the Green Bronx Machine. He was a teacher that was working more hours than the school system wanted him to work, because his fellow teachers were feeling like they were looking bad because he was out working them in spades, and they were kind of complaining about it because they,
Oh, really?
Long story short. But anyway, the school system said, look, you can't do that. You have to just work your hours. But he didn't want to sacrifice his weekends of really refining what he was doing to influence his children, his students, because they were living in public housing catty corner to the school. And he wanted them to improve their lives through healthier diets and through better sleep and lifestyle patterns. And so his whole thing was teaching them how to grow organic food in the school. And through that, he was able to reverse everything negative that you would see in metrics as you were checking a student's progress, like poor attendance, absenteeism, bad grades, health, fitness, weight, all those things that, you need to improve on. He was able to reverse all of those things. And the only way that he was able to do that and continue doing it was he had to resign as a paid teacher so that he could work on the weekends to keep crafting what he wanted to do. And he became a full-time volunteer teacher, so that nobody could tell him he couldn't work on the weekends because he wasn't being paid as a teacher. But anyway, we got wind of that story.
What an inspiration.
Put up there and did an episode with him, and over 3 visits into the Bronx. And it was fortuitous that he gave us access and we were able to understand the story enough to tell it properly. And that's the one we won our Emmy on. And he and I become great friends, and he's gone on to do great things. And he's a worldwide influential person with the importance of doing these things to help students learn important things about healthy eating and growing food and wonderful things. So that would be another one that just, it's hard to pick some of your favorites out of 200 and something episodes, but there are many, but those are just two.
Yeah. Have anything like really crazy go on behind the scenes? You have any sort of stories like of, I'm sure, your whole film crew, you're in places and different things. I bet you got some pretty interesting behind the scenes stories, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, one that just came to mind when you said that, I never really have thought about this since it happened, really. But one time we were filming with the Xerces Society up in the Pacific Northwest, and we were going to a farm that was we were showcasing these perimeters around the farm that were designed to attract insects, to really help with the pollination and beneficial insects and predatory insects, drawing them in. And so we're there with one of the representatives of the Xerces Society, and we're filming, and we often have a drone with us to get great overhead shots. So we're out there and we're doing our thing, and the drone pilot is flying the drone overhead, and all of a sudden we look over, and there's this man walking to us with a shotgun in his hands.
Oh no!
And we're like, what the hell? What's going on here?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And so anyway, he was the farmer next door, the caretaker. I don't know. He had a vested interest in the farm next door. And he thought we were flying the drone and spying on his farm or collecting data or intel on what he was doing on his farm.
No.
He had no inkling and no concern or no desire to know what he's doing.
Right, exactly.
He didn't want anybody to know what he was doing.
He's out to shoot your drone down.
Or worse. And
right, exactly.
Fortunately, we de-escalated that situation and it all worked out. But probably the weirdest thing that I can recall happening. I mean, we've had some weird, crazy things happen. Usually they're weather related or sound related to, the tree surgeons pulling up into the yard next door when we're there for a shoot, and you can't film a television show when the tree company is cutting down trees in the yard next door and then putting them through the shredder. And that went on for 3 days, and we're only on site for 3 days. When we do a show, they take about 3 days. And we had lots and lots of those. It seemed like the gods followed us everywhere. The noise gods followed us everywhere we went. So that's kind of a standard operating procedure for you ask any production company about that, and it's a universal curse that follows every production company for every show.
Yeah, especially you're out there trying to film in the, out in the public or out in the wild, I guess you could say, and everything and anything will try to get in the way. It's the same thing for me. It's like airplanes are a big one, like it's always like right as you're getting going or getting started, it sounds nice and quiet, nothing's going on. You're like, all right, here's our moment. Get it started, get things recording, and then boom, here comes a big old airplane flying overhead and just blowing your sound out.
In the first season, we filmed a episode at my co-executive producer's house. She lives 2 blocks from the Los Angeles International Airport, so one of the busiest airports in the country, in the world. And we're filming in her tiny little urban yard. 2 blocks from the airport. So you hear every engine that ever ramps up there. And it got to the beat that we timed it. We figured out their patterns where there would be a takeoff every 2 minutes. And so we would time our filming so that anything we needed to capture on film was within that 2 minute window. And then we'd have to stop and wait for And that went on for 3 days, just like that.
Yeah. I know that exact situation with my good friend Wayne, a viewer of my channel, who I've gone to visit down in Los Angeles there, and he lives literally right outside of LAX as well.
Yep.
And it's just like you said, every couple of minutes, and going both directions too.
Yeah.
It's-
Nightmare.
But yeah. Again, all the fun of being out in the wild, filming and putting together all of this great content that I think, again, too, when you're talking about some of those really inspiring stories and those sort of things, which are really, really what I think is really important about doing this sort of stuff, is be able to find and connect with these people and to be able to kind of share their stories with others.
And that's it. It's storytelling. Our whole series, Growing a Greener World, is all about telling the stories of the people and the places doing good things for the planet through organic gardening and environmental stewardship. That's kind of exactly the wording that we use to describe what our series is about. And the opportunity to go meet those people, many of them are heroes. I mean, I reached out to people that have been my heroes to do shows on them, like Maria Rodale with the Rodale Institute, and, you know, Seed Savers Exchange, and just all across the country, and tell those stories so that other people can learn about them if they didn't know about them already. And that's been just a highlight of my life, is being able to do that over all these years.
Yeah. And for me, just in the little bit that I've gotten to do, one of my most popular videos on my channel is visiting the Dervais family down in Pasadena, California, the urban homestead, and getting to tell. And it was and again, too, sometimes you don't know or know that you're getting the story you're getting either, too. When I first showed up there for the video that I shot with them, you know, I just knew a bit about what they were doing. I knew more about their father and the longer running story of what had, you know, of their urban farm. And what I got was the siblings who were left with this project after their father had just passed away. And so I got an interview with the son at first, and in fact, I'm editing a video I went to go revisit them again a few years later type video. I'm editing right now to put out, but it was just one of those things that's just so, you know, it was really inspiring to see these three siblings who were left with their father's project and this legacy project that was so admired and inspired a lot of people, and they've taken it to a whole nother level. You know, they've even gone further with it, the three of them, and it's great. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward about putting this video out too, is to kind of show where they are now compared to where they were when I first visited them, because it was really fresh. They didn't know what was going to happen next, and now we get to see them years later just really thriving in a situation that wasn't, you know, was a difficult one. But again, too, I mean, just like you said, the ability to go and visit people and to share stories is what makes doing some of this stuff so fun, and makes the experience even more fulfilling.
Right.
Yeah, right on. So again, you got this great television series. You're now really just in garden. I mean, you're doing all. You got joegardener.com, which I encourage folks who haven't had a chance to check that out as well too, because we'll have links for all this stuff right down below there too. You got joegardener.com, and I think again too, as I was exploring and checking things out, it's set up so really well. You know, you just got that one tab, start right here, and then you just kind of get right on this whole journey of gardening and growing and all of that though too. So tell me a little bit more about what your journey is in inspiring newer gardeners and people to get involved in gardening and growing.
Yeah, well, you know, I've been doing my podcast for 362 episodes now, whatever that is in years.
That's a lot. Yeah.
7, 8, not 8 years. Yeah, 8 times 5. Coming up on 8 years of weekly episodes. We never missed a week. And, you know, fortunately it's the top rated gardening podcast in Apple, and around the world. It's got quite a following. And I love audio. You know, I love doing those podcasts. And so I've been able to reach people everywhere through the episodes that we do there. And again, I get to have conversations with very interesting people, a lot of geeky, sciencey people, which I love and our audience loves, and sometimes very basic information and high level stuff and everything in between. Because when you've done 360 episodes, you know what you've covered everything.
That's right. Exactly.
But on top of that, in 2018, we started doing online courses, and this was, ahead of COVID, thankfully, because we wanted to reach gardeners who wanted to know more about specific or deeper topics. Like the first course we ever created was on beginning gardeners fundamentals course. And we thought it would just be a basic course. It was our first entree into online education. And we put it together, and it launched in 2019. And it was really good. I mean, it was way better than I envisioned that it would be. And it went so well that we realized that this is a thing, and people really like this kind of access to content at a deeper level. So the next course I did was called Master Seed Starting, and that launched in 2020, I think. And that's been our most popular course to date. And it's took 2 years to create, and it's still, we add a lot of new students every year. But anyway, we've gone on to do at least one new big course every year. And it is the number one way that I'm able to reach quite a few people at a personal level, because I'm able to interact with them. With television, I'm speaking to the camera lens. It goes out into the TV universe, and I don't ever know who sees it or how they're impacted unless they email me, and oftentimes they do, or however they reach out to me. And I learn that way. But for the most part, most of the people, I have no idea who's seen it or what they think. With the Online Gardening Academy, as students, one of the most important things for me is to make sure they have access to me so that I can help them through their journey of gardening for a lifetime. They have lifetime access. So I've had a lot of students that started in 2018 with me, and they're students of every course we've ever launched. But there are daily interactions. I have daily interactions with many of our students when they ask questions or when I post something into our community. So that's been special to me, because the thing I wanted to do after television or during television was create a way that I could have more deeper relationships with people that really crave that sort of interaction, because I did. And the online courses have been my way to be able to do that. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time every day and every week, is a few hours a day in there with my students. And it's been impactful to me, and from the feedback I get from them, it's really been impactful to them too.
Right on. Yeah, definitely. It's and again too, for a beginner gardener, it's great to have that kind of those type of courses, those sort of things to help get you started, get you off on the right foot when it comes down to it. There's a lot of information when it comes to gardening out there. And one of the things I'm always trying to be careful with when I'm out there making videos or doing all that is I really am not a gardening expert. I rely on folks like yourself, and I always encourage people to go check out folks like you and other gardeners that I'd really trust and think put out really great content that that is helpful when it comes down to it.
And that is such an important point, because in the day of the internet, where anybody can post anything, anytime, anywhere, somebody that doesn't know, they're online looking for information. So they type in their search term, and then all these hits come up. It's like, how do they even know? What's their filter to know whether or not that information that they're reading is even sound? Is it anecdotal? Is it science-based? Is it some Yahoo just making something up and it sounds and looks good and there's no merit to it? That's my big beef, is that you need to find those trusted sources that you can rely on, that have not served you wrong, that have led you down the right path, and stick with those select few that you're comfortable with and that like and trust, and stick to that. I mean, God, there's no limit to all the information out there, and unfortunately a lot of it is unreliable and noise and clickbaity and just all the things that we don't need.
Yeah, there's just so much of that, and really when it comes down to it, it's like you said, we should have a trusted sources and all of that, but then we should also understand that gardening is just really kind of this experience, that an adventure that we partake in, and there's a lot to learn. There's ins and outs, but it doesn't necessarily have to be as complicated as I remember I made it out to be when I first started gardening. So there's just kind of ways of kind of simplifying and helping people along and getting that adventure started for them. And I think the sort of things that you do are really, really great. And before I let you go, though, I really, we're talking all about all this great stuff, your show, your podcasts, you do speaking, you've got the online courses, you're an author. I think your recent book is the vegetable gardening book, Growing an Edible Organic Garden from Seed to Harvest.
Right.
And so you got all that great stuff, and which I also again encourage folks, if you haven't checked it out, check out joegardner.com right down below too, where you can find all of this stuff at. But let's dig into your actual garden real quick here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are you growing out of right now?
I am on the north side of Atlanta in a suburb called Milton, also known
So
as
you haven't
Alpharetta.
ventured too far from the southeast there.
Yeah, I've always been in the southeast, Miami
Okay.
to Atlanta, really, for the most part. And I have a 5-acre organic hobby farm, and
Okay.
it's perfect for me. It's the right size. It's not too big, not too small. It's when I'm out and about on my property, I feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere. But when I need to go to the store, it's
Mhm.
5 minutes away. I mean, anything you can think of that you need to go to is 5 to 7 minutes away, which is amazing. And
Right.
I have a big raised bed vegetable garden with 16 large raised beds.
Yeah.
I have a year-round garden, and so I'm always growing warmer, cool season crops depending on the time of the year. We're zone now 8A, and
So you were one of the changing zones?
yeah, we changed.
Mine didn't.
It didn't. One of the few that
No.
didn't change, really.
Well, I guess you had a half, wasn't it almost like a 50-50 chance, I think?
At least, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a new greenhouse grower as of a little over a year ago. So I have
Oh, nice.
I've had a greenhouse a little over a year now, and I have been loving that.
I can imagine.
And
That's great.
I have native plant beds outside of my vegetable garden on my property. I have
Yeah.
my little bit of lawn passing through the beds or between the beds, and then I plant a lot of native plants. My big challenge is I have a lot of deer, and I don't have a deer fence,
Mhm.
so they eat down all my good stuff. And every year I vow to get my deer fence, and I've yet to do it. So
Oh, yeah, huh? Just one of those things, you just take the hit when it comes, right?
yeah, and they don't get any easier.
Yeah. There's always something. We're all, as gardeners, we're always dealing with something, and some things a little more than others. I don't got the animal pests pretty much, other than my cats and that sort of stuff that run around in the. Because
Yeah.
we're right here outside of my downtown area, and I grow a lot out of like alleyways and unused spaces and things like that. But so real quick, let's just jump into like what's one of your favorite things to grow? I mean, if you're going to grow something each and every year, what's your favorite vegetable, fruit, whatever to grow?
I'm looking out that way because my garden's right out there. I'm looking at my garden. And there's right in transition, so there's nothing other than a bed of garlic growing in my beds because I just finished cleaning out my cool season stuff that overwintered, and now I'm getting ready literally this week to plant all my warm season stuff. And so my favorite thing to grow, I think, is tomatoes. And it's not because they're easy. I think it's because they're not easy is why it's my favorite to grow. I like the challenge. I love to learn, and if it's easy, I don't want to say I get bored with it, but it's not as exciting to me.
Yeah.
So, leafy crops, I love them and I eat them and I grow the heck out of them, but it's the tomatoes that I always grow too many of because I am always dealing with diseases mostly, because here in the Southeast, we're just known for that. But, to get something, I start everything from seed. So you start it from seed to seedling to into the ground to growing to then flowering and fruiting. That is a very long, that is 150 days. And there's a lot that can go wrong in 150 days. And and I always am looking to find the next trick or hack or aha that solves whatever challenge that is. And so it's never boring. And I think so. That's my reason why it's my favorite.
Even when I think I've mastered something, I find that I haven't yet, and there's something new to learn for sure. My favorite is Peppers on a similar situation. I like the challenges that they present. I like their personalities. I think Peppers have personalities. It's amazing, you know, from each individual variety. I think is one of those things that make those great. But I'm with you with tomatoes too. And again, too, it comes down to variety. It's just so awesome to be able to grow tomatoes of different varieties and again, peppers as well, all that sort of stuff. What's one of your least favorite? Is there something?
Cucurbits. I don't like growing squash and zucchini and cucumbers. First of all, you know, squash, we all loathe the squash plant borer. It's kind of universal. Then you have the squash bugs, the squash beetles, the prickliness of the leaves and the stem. Can't stand that. And I like squash, but I don't love it enough to go through that misery. And I like zucchini less than that. So there's that. And then same thing with cucumbers. I mean, I love a good cucumber, but the structure of the leaves and the stems are pretty much the same thing, same family. And they always come down with these diseases that, you know, as an organic gardener, I'm not going to jump at putting fungicides over everything. And I'm just going to kind of manage it as the diseases come on, but they always do. And it's like, it's more work than it's worth. I mean, it's really pretty when they're filling up your trellis and it's lush and the cucumbers are coming on and the bees are after the flowers. I love that part, but I don't love what comes after it. And so I don't grow it. I definitely don't grow it every year. And, you know, then I get back around to growing it. And there's one other one that comes to mind, and it's kind of on a related basis, and that's okra. I mean, I got to put my Farmer's Defense sleeves on for all of the things I've just mentioned.
Yes, that's right.
They're working them. If you don't have some protection on your arms, they're going to get irritated with that, whatever the chemical is, and then all the little spikiness.
Yeah.
And with the okra especially. Plus the okra gets so dang tall and woody. And so it's like at the end of the season, you're cutting down trees to get them out.
That's right, huh?
So there's that. Although it is a very pretty plant. It is a very.
They are. Yeah. They are again too. I like that. And I don't know. I mean, I like again too eggplants being one of my favorites to grow in the garden that I don't actually enjoy like eating. I'm not an eggplant fan. I grow eggplants. I grow eggplants for my friends who do like eggplants because I like them and I like the spikiness about them. But I totally get what you're saying though about them being such an irritant. I'm always coming home, you know, spending the evening scratching my arms when I forget to put some sort of covering and I get in there digging around all of these types of plants that got all those just little, they're just a bit much.
I pretty much always grow eggplant, but I hardly ever eat it. So I love the look of the plant and I love the fruit on the plant. It's gorgeous.
Stunning looking plants and fruits. And so in a sense, you know, for me, I think of them maybe as more of like an ornamental in my garden. But yet I have friends who enjoy the eggplant. So, you know, there's no reason for me not to grow them and enjoy them in my garden and share them with others, you know.
And they're very prolific. Once they start fruiting, man, there is no stopping them. And you don't have to do anything to help them along other than to support them so the branches don't get so laden with fruit that they break off the stem. So there's that.
Yeah. And definitely. Those are really great. So, man, just a really great conversation, Joe. Real quick before you go, though, you got any real quick advice or tips for new gardeners before we send you on your way?
Yeah. Don't wait until you think you know enough to start.
Yes.
And if you think you don't have a place to grow, think again, because you do. You have a container or a grow bag, and you might have a sunny spot somewhere where you rent, or maybe it's your balcony or your patio or your stoop or outside the garage or who knows where. But you got to start and learn. And the only way you're going to get better is to not only start, but then don't be afraid to make mistakes. A lot of people don't start because they're afraid they don't know enough and they're going to make mistakes. I'm just here to tell you that you're never going to be a better gardener until you make those mistakes. But the key to making the mistakes is then try to figure out how that mistake happened. What did you do or didn't do that led to that outcome? And no matter how much you know, whether you're brand new or whether you've been doing it for decades like me, there is always more to learn, which is why I love gardening so much. I told you when I was 8 years old, I was so fascinated because I wanted to learn more. And today, I'm the same way. I want to learn more today than I knew yesterday. And tomorrow, I want to learn something new that I don't know today about gardening. And you're never going to run out of things to learn. So it's never boring. It's always exciting. And you're never in control. And that's the other thing for control freaks like me. It keeps you humble and it levels the playing field. And I think that's very healthy.
Man, I couldn't agree with you more. 100%. You know, especially the point of, like I said, one of the things for me on my channel is we do a lot of small space urban gardening, and you can grow anywhere. You can grow, you know, like you said, I started off on an apartment balcony many years ago for my very first venture into growing my own food. And I think just ultimately creating that connection with food and the growing process in any sort of way is an empowering thing. And we can do it in almost any space and just get out there and do it.
And I think when people learn that it's not as hard as they may think to grow food, it's liberating. I mean, just thinking about knowing that if you had to, you could grow your own food. You know, as important as that sounds, who knows how important that really may be someday, you know, for wherever we are in our lives or whatever happens in the future. So it's a good skill. And not to mention that nothing tastes better than the food that you grow in your own garden, nor is nothing as nutritious as what comes out of your own garden, especially when you're growing it organically. So what's not to like?
That's right. That's right. I'm telling you, it's just it's one of the best things that I ever found my way into, and I have not heard a story from any other gardener that isn't very similar.
Yeah.
Awesome, Joe. Man, thank you so much, really, for joining and spending the afternoon talking with me here. It's really appreciate learning a bit more about your garden story.
You're welcome. That might be more than a bit, but thanks for asking the questions and for having me and allowing me to, you know, walk down memory lane and share some of the experiences that I've had. Oops.
Oh,
that's a cat. That was a weird sound. Those are two cats that haven't quite gotten along yet.
My cat, he knows when I get ready to, he seems to know. He gets right by the back door when he knows I'm about to start recording. So he knows he's got to get going. Because he'll be around making noise. So I'm always having to usher him out before I get going.
Yeah.
I'm a cat guy myself. All right, Joe. Again, I could talk all day. Love it. Thank you so much for joining the show today. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was fun. And again, thanks for having me.
You got it. All right, everybody. How about that? What a great, fun interview, and getting to learn just a bit more about Joe and his history and how he got started doing all of the things he's doing through his show and now currently his podcast that he has, Joe Gardener Podcast. And I do, again, too. Links are always down below to catch up with any of our guests here, whether that is Rebecca from Happy Heart Gardens, get down below, click on that, go follow her, and then definitely go check out, if you haven't yet, which I know a lot of people here I've been seeing through the chat have already and have seen Joe before and watched his show Growing in a Greener World. They do have those episodes available on YouTube, and I've got a link down below for that, so if you can go check out Growing a Greener World. And then also there's a link to the podcast that he's doing currently. He just put one out just a couple of days ago, so you go check that out, where he's interviewing and talking to gardeners and all of that, just like we do here. There ain't nothing more fun than getting around with a bunch of gardeners and getting a chance to talk all about growing, gardening, or, you know, when it comes to some of our really great guests that we get to feature on our show, get to learn about a little bit more how they got into the sort of things that they're doing, whether they've got a YouTube channel, or sometimes we've got some people who've had radio shows, you know, or Joe in his case, PBS, and doing a show for that. It's great to be able to get in and learn and dig into a little bit more of those garden stories that they have, and find out what led them towards a profession basically in gardening. And yeah, so it's great. You know, I don't know if I would necessarily call this call this a profession or anything like that, but you know, I do kind of think that, you know, gardening and all of that sort of stuff coming into my life, you know, led me to places that I didn't necessarily think I would be going in. You know, I never would have thought, if you told me years ago, I mean, even just, you know, well, I guess I've been doing the channel for 7 years, but if you'd told me, say, 4 years ago, I knew I was even doing the channel then, but to say that you would be hosting a weekend live gardening show where you get to talk to all of these just amazing people like Mark Valencia and Joe Lample, and to think that we would have like James Prigioni on the channel, Greg Peterson, I can go on and on. We've had so many awesome people: Jared Gettle, John Kohler, Wendy Fan, Ashley Thomas. I mean, more and more. You just keep rattling them off, you know. Gary Pilarczyk, you know, one of these guys and people that I've been following for many, many years. All sorts of people we get to meet and introduce you to right here on the Let's Get Growing show. And it's just really amazing to be able to share this space with all of you. And especially today, you know, we don't normally do pre-recorded interviews unless, you know, there's just someone I gotta talk to and I gotta have on the show. Like today, Joe Lample, I mean, you get an opportunity to talk to him, you're gonna take it any way you can. Same with like James Prigioni when we had him on. Same sort of thing. Anytime I can grab them, get a conversation from them, record it, and then bring it to you, then that's really great. But we really like to have our live guests here so that we can all kind of have this fun gardening conversation with each other, and our guests too included. But also too, you know, we get these pre-recorded interviews and I get a chance to kind of jump in and join in the conversation with everybody in the chat as well too, which is something I don't normally get to do unless it's really, you know, just kind of following along the chat through the live stream and the different interviews we do during the show. So that was kind of fun for me, kind of hang out and watch all of you guys and talk with all of you guys and all of that. So it was great. And I thank you so much, definitely, for joining with me today to do that. So if you are here with me as well, make sure that you hit that like button right now. Hit that like button, click the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, click that bell notification if you want to be notified of upcoming videos and live streams that we have coming up here. We'll go through our rundown with you all if you missed the beginning of the show as well too. But definitely share also as well too. We're trying to grow this audience. We're trying to get more and more people out here to watch the Let's Get Growing show. We've been doing this a while and doing really great things here. We need to get our friends. We need to get all of our garden people that we know and let them know that we got something really amazing going on over here and having some really awesome conversations and really getting to learn just a little bit more about people like Joe Lample. So how awesome is that? So definitely share with all your friends. Let them know about our show here too. Now, also one of the things I like to encourage everybody to do as well is joining our urban gardener community at the Let's Get Growing group, appropriately titled Let's Get Growing group. It's on Facebook. It's a gardening group on Facebook for our gardening community, the Urban Gardener community. And really, it's a great place where you can continue the conversation with gardeners that you've been talking to here or other gardeners that we have in our group. Share your garden spaces. This is one of the great opportunities that you have too as well. I love it. I love that word opportunity as well. It's a great opportunity for me actually to be able to see your gardens, because if you go over there to our group and share your garden spaces and pictures and all of that, then I get to see what you've got growing on, and you can follow along with me here on our channel to see what I've got growing on. And also, our sponsor is Ivy Organics. Go check out ivyorganics.com for their 3-in-1 plant guard. Highly recommend this 3-in-1 plant guard. Go find out a little bit more about it at ivyorganics.com, and definitely use our promo code GROW10, GROW10, to get 10% off of this real must-have product. I don't endorse or push too many things when it comes to products. I like to really do keep my garden almost product free, really. If you say, I do got to go dig and find some Sluggo. This is some good stuff when you're dealing with slugs. There are a few things. Ivy Organics 3-in-1 plant guard is definitely one of those things that you want to have in your shed that you can dig out. Like I'm going to go dig out that other stuff that you can dig out when you need it, and to get some of your plants protected as well. It really makes this really cool whitewash that is really great for your trees. If you got trees, I've got container trees. It's a great protection for them from sun scald and sunburn. During the summertime, you get some sunburn. During the wintertime, you can get some sun scald, and it really protects those trees from that. So definitely go check that out at ivyorganics.com. So definitely awesome, everybody. So here's the deal. Everybody knows we've got our show on Saturday and Sundays, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're here every Saturday and Sunday. Now, what's going to be a little different over the next couple of weeks is how and what's going to be going on as I'm going to be here. Next Saturday, I'll just show up, we'll kind of hang out. We'll just have a little bit of a conversation. It won't be a regular show. I am expecting my great granddaughter any day now. And if it doesn't happen any day now, it's definitely going to happen per doctor's orders this next Friday, I believe, the 28th. So we're going to have to just kind of hold on, see what's going on. So I'm not going to be, trying to worry about preparing a show or getting things together. We've just kind of pushed some things aside for that show. So, but I will try to show up. I will try to kind of hang out for a little bit and be here, because like I said, even though we might not have shows in certain weeks, I still like to kind of show up and be here just for everybody to know that, we got something growing on here each and every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Tomorrow's show is going to be very much like next Saturday's show. So that's going to be the situation. So I'm not planning for shows for this week. So tomorrow's show is going to be just I'm going to come up, we're going to hang out, we'll talk about some things. If you got some questions about gardening or my gardens or anything you want to ask me, tomorrow's a great opportunity to do that. Next Saturday as well. Next Sunday, though, I do have something that was on the schedule. I do want to make sure that we continue forward with that, and that's my seasonal every so often we get together with my good friends Christopher Bransdahl from Norway and King Starr from Texas. These two guys are really good friends of mine. We've been doing live streams, for several years together. And so it's great to kind of catch up with them each and every season. It's the summer season. So we'll do that next Sunday. And then the week after that, that's kind of the 4th of July holiday. I was already kind of planning. The baby was supposed to actually be born or due that weekend too. So I kind of planned around that for our kind of summer break. So that's what we're going to be doing there. But I'll still show up again, like I said, and I'll come hang out with you for a little bit if you come here and join with me at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time right here on the Urban Gardener channel. And then starting July 13th, we'll be back up and running again for the summer season with all new guests each and every week, all sorts of great fun gardening conversations right here on the Let's Get Growing show. So don't miss out. Like I said, subscribe, do all of that sort of stuff so you don't hit that bell notification so you don't miss out on anything that we've got growing on here on our show. So yeah, lots and lots of things going on, lots and lots of things. Like I said, definitely go back and check out some of our past shows. Last week we had Christy Wilhelmi on for her book Garden Variety. That was a really fun show. You can go check that out as well too. We had Leo Carver for our Saturday show. Growing Consciousness was a book he wrote, and we talked all about kind of the spiritual side of gardening. So that was a fun conversation. We've got many, many more on our live page here on the channel. So go back and check out some of those old shows. Get into the comments section. Again, like I said, comments right here on the Urban Gardener channel on our videos and live streams. Let us know you're here. Let us know what you've got growing on. And if you see any of our guests, definitely get to links below that we have for them and go and check them out. Go give them a subscribe or a follow, or and jump in one of their posts or one of their videos and leave them a comment and let them know that you saw them right here on the Let's Get Growing show. And I'll see all of you on our next show